So today I'll be showing you how to attach the points in the Oakley leaf pattern, how to attach the feet, how to embroider the mouth, and where to put the eyes. Okay, so this is really where we begin now that we've made all of our separate pieces, and then we'll crochet it into one whole oak leaf. So I've got my first point here, which is the last point I make. This is the top of our oak leaf. Essentially what we've done is worked from the bottom up. So we've made our 2 feet first, points 6 and 7, points 4 and 5, and points 2 and 3. So what we'll do is we will move these guys out of the way. What I'm going to do is single crochet until I get to the end. Then I'll insert my hook into this guy, single crochet all the way around, insert back into the point, crochet across, insert into this guy, crochet around, and then we'll start our new round. So I'm going to insert my hook, and yes, I crochet funny, don't make fun of me. Okay, I've now started our new round, so that's 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, 3, and now I'm on the end. So now I'm going to find the first stitch of the last round, insert my hook, and then because this guy has 9 all the way around, that's what I'm going to make. So okay, and then I'll pop him back out. So now that I've crocheted all the way around, I'm going to look and find the next stitch back into that first point. So this was the last stitch I made. I'm going to go over to the next stitch and make a single crochet. Now I'm going to single crochet all the way across to the other side, and then we'll add this guy. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm back on the end. Look for the first stitch of the last round. So this is the last stitch I made. I'm going to hop over to the next one, insert my hook, and attach with a single crochet. And again, work all the way around. So now I will insert my hook back into the first point. So I look for my last stitch, which ends up being the first stitch of the round, and I reattach it with a single crochet. Now, every time that we attach these points, there will likely be a tiny gap. That's what we've kept the 3 to 4 inch strands for, because we'll just go in and whip stitch those closed as we move down. So that's attaching the first 2 points. We'll work our next few rounds, and then we'll come back to attach the next points. Okay, so I've gone and attached points 2 and 3 and closed up those holes. So I will now crochet across. Again, we'll insert all the way around, insert into the back, single crochet across, insert all the way around, and back into the leaf. So I've made my first stitch already in this round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we're right on the end. If you fold it in half, you're right in the middle. And then I look for the last stitch I made and go into the next one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. And then I will look for where I crocheted last and go to the next stitch. And then we'll go all the way across again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Again, if you fold in half, right in the middle. You may need to add or take away a stitch or two, just depending, but just always make sure that you're on that end. And then again, look for the last stitch and go into the next one. And 9. I'll look back to where I made my last stitch and go into the next one and finish that off. So again, I'll do the next couple rows of decrease, then I will stitch up these clothes or holes, and then we will add the next 2 points. This would also be a good point to start stuffing the points just slowly as you go down. It doesn't have to be too firmly. Okay, so I've attached points 4 and 5. I've seamed up those holes and I've started stuffing. It's not too stuffed, just enough where it's still squishy, but then also still remains flat. So for this round, round 19, we will again single crochet across the front, insert crochet all the way around, along the back, and same thing. So I've done my 18 and then I will go 6 around. So I'll find the last stitch that I made and just go right into the next one. Five and 6. Okay, and then I'll look for my last stitch, go to the next one and insert back into the leaf. And then again, all the way across. Again, always check to make sure that you're right up the middle when you fold it in half. Look for your last stitch and go into the next one. Okay, that was the last stitch of this round, so we'll just take our stitch marker out, pop it back in. Now you'll do your last few rows of decrease, and then we'll add the feet. So I've put the first eye in between rows 15 and 16, and then I'll count 4 stitches over to add the second eye. So just 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll pop him in. And then I just kind of check to make sure that they're in line with that middle point at the top, which that looks good. So now I'll put the backs in. I've used 12 millimeters for this size. Some of my testers use bigger eyes, some of them use smaller eyes. All really depends on your personal preference. I think they all turned out really cute. And there we go for eye attachment. Now for the mouth, I like to use cotton yarn. That's just my preference. I'm using Line Brand 24/7 cotton. It's 4-ply. I just split it in half so that I have the 2. I just find the entire thing is too thick for my preference. And when I split it into 4, it's just a little bit too thin. It doesn't pop as much. I feel like I don't see it. So I like to sew my mouths on before I close things up, just so I can do my knots on the inside and not worry about anything coming loose. It's nice and close and secure to where I'm actually embroidering the mouth. So I come in through the back on the inside, and I want to come out right in between 15 and 16, right next to the eye. So I start on the right through here. You might want to hold one end of the cotton yarn just so you don't pull both through. There we go. And then I go across through the same stitch on the opposite side. Now I'm going to come out 1 row down in the center of those two eyes. Sometimes it takes a few tries to get it right in the middle. Okay. And pull through. Now, to make the smile, I'm gonna come back underneath that loop I just made. I like to make mine, pull it a little loose so that it can get more of a curve instead of being just a straight triangle. The tighter you go, the more angular it is, the more slack you give, the rounder you can kind of place it. And then once I'm happy with that, I go back into the stitch I came out of in the bottom. And just pull gently, because again, I don't want to tighten it. And you can play around with it until you're happy with it. I'm happy with that. I think it's cute. I think it looks even. So then I just flip the inside a little bit so I can tie a nice double knot, and then it'll stay secure in place. Oops, caught my stitch marker there. And there we go. You may need to go back in with your needle to adjust it if necessary, but I think that looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do, now that the face is all done, I'm going to get rid of my stitch marker now. I don't need them anymore. All I'm going to do is slip stitch across the front until I get to the other side, and I'll explain why in a second. It should be about 8 slip stitches, just depending on your tension. Okay, that's 8. I'm going to fold it in half and check. That looks good to me. I'm going to finish stuffing. Okay, make sure everything's even and that nothing's poking out. These nice and flat. Perfect. Okay, so the reason we slip stitched across is to make sure that we are able to attach the feet facing the right way. So we essentially are going to insert our hook through both loops. So it'll be 4 loops from these single crochet stitches, and then 2 more once we single crochet into this. So we're crocheting the feet directly into the head, and you want the foot to look like it's going to kick your little guy in the face. So I'm going to fold this guy in half and go in 1 and then 2 and 3. Okay, it might be a little tight, but just work your way through. We're essentially going to attach the feet with 3 single crochet. So 1, again, through both sides. There we go. And 3. Last one for this foot. 1, 2, and 3. Again, you want it through both of the loops, so that's perfect. There we go. So I've done 3. I have 7. I had 14 stitches in this row, so when we fold in half, we have 7. So we've done 3. I'm going to just do a single crochet between the legs without a foot. So there's 4, and then we'll go through for the last 3. So 1, 2, if I can get through there. I have pretty tight tension, so it might not be as tight for you going to go through. If it is too tight, you can just go in with a needle and kind of loosen the stitch a little bit, make it easier for yourself. And 3 for our last foot. Okay, and then I just fasten off. And weave in that last end. I take it in with scissors and just hope and pray I don't cut a stitch. And there we go. Now you have your own little Oakley the leaf. Thanks so much for watching. If you